This is Jordan Peele's second movie and the first one since Get Out, which was a massive hit, and in my opinion it got a lot more praise than it deserved. It was a pretty good movie, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it was phenomenal. And I had some real issues with it, but that's a whole nother can of worms. So let's just stick to this one because it also had a few issues. That being said, I thought it was fine and had some great moments in it. And I will say that the writing, from a purely technical standpoint, is excellent for the most part. There are so many little details that pop up in the early part of the movie. So many in fact that I started writing them down, keeping tabs. And sure enough, they all come into play later in one way or another. I didn't notice one single thing that was teased or hinted at that didn't end up meaning something. And that is how you write a good script, and I was impressed. But when it comes to the overall story and the plot, that's where I had some issues. I mean, the premise, the basic idea was original, fun and creative, but I'm not so sure about the execution of the plot itself. And as far as the general story goes, there's not much I can say. It's essentially about this family spending the summer at a lake house. And some creepy things start to happen and everything goes wrong very fast. But that's about as far into it I can get without giving anything away. But I will say the horror elements in this worked well for the most part. The mood and the atmosphere were great, and yeah, I thought all of that worked. And the main performance by Lupita Nyong'o was very impressive. That being said, the other performances didn't really stand out to me at all. I wouldn't call them bad either, they just didn't compare. Now, as I said, the basic premise here is unique and I liked it quite a bit. It's a fun idea, but that's also the real problem here. It's just an idea, a premise. Jordan Peele clearly had this idea of wouldn't it be cool if this thing happened. And yeah, it was, but I don't think he went far enough with that idea. He could have gone further because the actual plot here, the things that happen on screen, the events that drive the story, aren't very interesting, and you know, that's most of the movie. And I sat there wondering why I liked the premise but wasn't really that invested in the events themselves. And I realized that if you really break it down, I've seen this before. Many times. Structurally, it's more or less a run-of-the-mill zombie apocalypse movie, disguised as something else because there aren't any zombies. But the plot basically follows the standard zombie movie beat for beat, especially the middle part of the movie. And I just think there was potential for more here. I think he could have done more with this idea. But I mean, it worked. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And as I said, the overall script is very strong when it comes to the details and the structure. But then we get to the characters and the dialogue, and it's a lot weaker. I'd be lying if I said I cared about the characters. I just didn't. They might as well have been cardboard cutouts. Or well, I guess I did care a little bit about the mom, because she's the protagonist. And she has a backstory and all of that, but she didn't really have much of a personality either. I didn't find her that interesting. And when it comes to the dialogue, it's fine, it does its job, I guess. But it's kinda unremarkable, and honestly the humor in this was kinda underwhelming too. Some of the more subtle, darkly comedic stuff I thought worked. But then you have the more jokey stuff, mainly coming from the dad. And some of that didn't just fall flat, but basically ruined certain scenes. I mean, there are jokes in there that just utterly undermine the tension the movie had just built up. And deflates the scene, and it then has to pick up the pieces and rebuild. All just for a cheap laugh that didn't need to be there in the first place. And that's probably my only real gripe with the movie. The thing that actually annoyed me. Other things could have been done better, but they didn't actively work against the movie. Well, there were a few questions that the movie just sort of brushed off toward the end, and that felt kinda rushed, like Jordan Peele just didn't want to deal with it. But on the other hand, the very end I did like quite a bit. It had a very M. Night Shyamalan feel to it, and I thought it was great. It worked and it didn't leave me feeling cheated or anything like that either. It just left me feeling surprisingly good about the movie, and sorta elevated my perception of it as a whole too. That being said, the middle part of the movie, while fun, didn't do much for me. I liked the premise, I liked the ending, I liked the main performance, but as a whole I don't think it was that amazing, but it was pretty good. So would I recommend it? Yeah, sure, it's a fun little movie. And pretty creepy at times too. So maybe check it out, maybe don't. I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to build myself a personal funhouse hall of mirrors. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.